Hey guys, how's it going? I'm loading into Guardian Tales now and I'm really excited to do this video for you. It's something I've been thinking about doing for a little while and I hope it's something that you're interested as well. Today we will be going through potential team comps for Earth as well as a potential ranking for how strong these units are. I just realized I logged into the wrong account. One second. If you haven't figured it out yet, I don't have a PhD. I'm just an idiot. You got clickbaited. You got debated. Leave it in the comments below. Let's do this.
Hey, listen.
Just do it.
All right, guys, this may look better to you because it is better for me, okay? Though I think we could have actually done it, now that I think about it, on the other account. That account was one of my speedrun accounts. If looking at Guardian Tales speedrun content is interesting to you, let me know. I can easily put up my streams for when we were doing that on the channel. But it's mainly something that I was just doing to have fun with my chat. So, without further ado, let's get into the book here. And let's talk about Earth heroes. Now, there's no way you can talk about that priority and the best Earth heroes physically possible without leading with Bari. Now, Bari is a unit that I think you actually need to be careful of. Now, even though she is at the very, very tip top of this element, she is not without her downsides. First and foremost, she's a squishy unit, which many of you would already know. She holds this orb above her head and goes Kamehameha on those bitches, but that thing actually isn't all Kamehameha until you get her to 5 stars and you open her legendary notes. Now, at that point, her skill damage is off the chart, and with Mayriel, her auto attacks start hitting like a truck. But until then, she's probably not the top tier of this class. But there is no way you were thinking of running an in-game Earth mono element team without including Bari in that team composition. There is definitely ways to do it, and there are very strong ways to do it, but Bari is the staple of the Earth. Now, I will say that there is a very specific Earth composition that you can run very effectively that does not include her, but I will take that as an edge case in this scenario. Bari is the staple of the Earth class. The second one we're going to talk about is Tenia. Tenia is a very strong range hero that gives you a lot of mobility. She has her own primary skill that allows her to jump back, get additional bonus movement speed and defense while marking the other person to take more defense. Overall, she is a very strong DPS that offers you party attack range. Now, she gets 5% attack on hit on enemy kill and gains 5% HP on enemy kill as well. But in reality, she is your primary DPS if you do not have Marina, and she is your second, or she the reality is she's your secondary DPS if you have Bari. She also is very good because of her ultimate ability if she has 2 stacks of her specific skill. Her Wind Master ability, if she has 2 stacks of that and then she uses her skill, she can then pop off for even more damage. But she is probably, not only is she the second Nat 3 in Earth, she's probably the second best hero. Now, honestly, you could make the argument that the second best hero in the Earth class is Craig. Craig is an absolute mammoth, guys. He gives you 44% extra defense to your party, as well as 23,000 HP, 187 defense, 32 damage reduction, plus anything else you equip to the man. This man is the definition of a tank. It is not unheard of to actually think that Craig could out-tank Marina. And not only could he do that, he can also taunt the opposing team to attack him. That, my friends, is the definition of insanity. That this man can then turn around and taunt with this much tank stats He is really freaking good, and because none of his kit relies on Earth, you could actually flex Craig to other roles. So Tenia is really good because of her consistency, her mobility, and if you, the player, are targeting her, I would probably prefer to have Tenia on my team over Craig, but in reality, Craig is the staple to Earth teams outside of Bari. You remember when I said there was an edge case to urge compositions? It actually focuses around Craig instead of Bari. That is how strong of a unit that Craig really is. And Craig is one of the primary reasons why I think Earth is the strongest mono element team overall. I think Craig is someone that obviously transcends the Earth class, and in any tier list you see about this game, Craig better be in the S tier, top tier class, because that is what this man is. I honestly could see you flipping him in Tenia, as I've said before, but it comes down to if you are piloting them or not, in my opinion. Now, the position in the Earth class for 4 and 5, you could actually interchange as well. I think a lot of people would tell you that Hecati is that person to fit into the 4 class as well. She offers you an immense amount of critical hit chance, which is really good when paired with Tenia and Bari, but she is super squishy, and if you are manning her or watching her on the other side, it is actually kind of surprising how often she misses her auto attacks. So you are using her in your composition to be a steroid to your other teams, and in the off chance that she is hitting her own damage consistently, she can push out a considerable amount of DPS. She is also really good if you're pairing her with someone like Arabelle, but within a mono Earth element class, I don't think I would actually recommend running her over who we will go over next, Aoba. Now, Aoba is your prototypical support. She actually does supporting very well, and it's very consistent. Not only is her chain skill a heal, but her normal attack is a heal as well. So it isn't like someone like Lorraine, who is very limited in how often she can heal you. Aoba can be in a situation to where she heals you at any point in time. The reason why you could potentially flip Hecate and Aoba comes down to the fact that Aoba has her primary kit outside of healing revolved around boosting your earth attack. This is something that you will see pretty often on a singular class hero across all the mono elements, which is actually why mono elements can become so strong. The reason why people make mono element teams and recommend you to do mono element teams is primarily because of how accessible they are in the Evo dungeons compared to a rainbow comp. It's very hard to get a rainbow comp all the way to 5 stars compared to a mono element. But also the secondary reason is because of class characters like Aoba that gives your party 35% attack. So when it comes down to mono element teams, it actually doesn't make sense to run Hecate over Aoba, in my opinion. I think Hecate and Aoba are very similar in terms of tiering on how good they are as heroes, because Aoba doesn't really have any reason to be on a party outside of a mono element unless you just don't have another healer you find viable. Her losing that 35% extra attack on Earth element makes a lot of her kit pretty irrelevant when it comes to awakening stones. So when it comes to mono elements, Aoba is a must. Even in that edge case scenario, Aoba is on the team. But in terms of overall hero composition, she is probably equal to Hecate. Now, the next one we need to go over is Marianne. Marianne is very similar to Hecate in terms of damage output, but she lacks that critical attack steroid. She has a better chain skill for doing consistent DPS, which makes her very viable in mono earth teams, especially since a lot of her awakening stones are revolved around the 36% earth attack. So if you have her in Aoba, Bari, and Craig as your team, you are putting a lot of emphasis on the DPS output of Bari and Marine, and you can also take Bari out of that composition and put Tenia in, and you're going to actually get very similar DPS output, and that's a very strong team because of that party buff. But her as an individual unit, and a unit that transcends out of mono element, isn't that good. So I would put her next in a ranking, but she isn't bad when it comes to mono element teams. The last hero that we will put on this list, because let's be frank, the only 1-star unit we're talking about is Marvin. Now Marvin is the go-between between Craig and your DPS. He is a tankier unit that does inflict a decent amount of DPS. You could think of him as your brawler. He is kind of like your worse version of a tank in most other classes. But if you compare Marvin with Craig, you have a serious amount of beefiness, and Marvin still can take advantage of the things from Marianne and Hecati to apply a considerable amount of DPS. The edge case that I keep telling you guys about is Craig, Marvin, Aoba, and Marianne. That team will get you through a lot of the game, and it is very strong. You could even consider pushing that into Coliseum and doing very, very well. I believe there was a user that got into the top 100 with that edge case of this, but let me go over some of the more prominent team compositions that you would see after I went through these rankings of the units in the mono element. The staple 4-man roster that you see is this one. You man Bari, Tenia is your secondary DPS, Aoba, and Craig. This is probably the most rounded composition you will find out there, because Tenia is pretty solid as a secondary DPS. She provides immense amount of crits. She applies that mark on them. She's fairly mobile, and when she uses her hero skill, she becomes fairly tanky. She is someone on your team that you can just let roam and you don't actually have to think about. So that is what makes her very viable in this compared to someone like Marianne or Hecate. Now, Bari, I don't really have to explain. When you're just holding down that attack button and spamming skill every time it's up, you're just straight owning people. Aoba is there to provide you flexibility in terms of if you take damage, you can run towards Aoba, or you can activate her chain skill and get 55% of your health back. But she's really there to provide consistent healing to Craig. And if Craig has his exclusive weapon as well, he is also healing himself. So Aoba plus Craig with his exclusive weapon makes Craig a super tank, as well as Aoba doing okay damage on her own and providing the rest of your team a good earth attack buff, and then providing you sustained heal ability with a burst heal. This is your prototypical team that you see ran. The next team that you will see ran is this team here. This is generally a team that you would see run if you don't have Tenia, and then you would also see the same composition if you removed Bari for Tenia based off of what you have. This is a very PvE friendly team that can do you okay in Coliseum as well. It does not have the same damage output that having Tenia in, or the sustainability, because Marianne will die pretty often. But nonetheless, it's a very good team. In terms of mono elements, having one 3-star unit in it, this may actually be second only to Light. Surprisingly Light. Now, if we're assuming that the third most popular ran is with Tenia, we should note that any composition of those three running Marvin over Craig is generally just because they don't have Craig yet, because they haven't beaten World 7. Marvin isn't that great as a primary tank. He does die more often than you care to admit that he does. But it makes a lot of sense to have Marvin in your team if you were to run something like this. This isn't a composition I see very often, but this makes more sense than just running Marvin as your tank. Now, you might notice that I don't run Hecate in any of these compositions. Hecate is not a PvE or Coliseum hero in my opinion, but Hecate is very strong if she is in a crit-based Coliseum team or you're running her in arena. If you were to pick 3 units that you had to run in arena, I would run these 3. And as you will know, Hecate is the only one I have at 1 star. So if you want to say I'm biased, there's all the evidence that you need. I don't think she's that as great as a lot of other people do. This, though, would probably be your 3 best units to run, with Marianne coming in 4th and Marvin coming in 5th. Now, there are some people, surprisingly, that will run Aoba in arena, and that to me is interesting, but I would rather run Marvin than Aoba. Your typical Colosseums are all of the PvE variants that we saw earlier, so keep that in mind. My initial team compositions that I presented to you, if it's good in PvE, it is also likely pretty good in Colosseum, because you are designing your PvE comps to be well-rounded, which is also something you want in Colosseum unless you have a very specific strategy that you're going after. If you are front-loading someone like Arabelle to do massive amount of damage with her genocide, yeah, it might make sense to put a lot of things like Hecate and Nari out there, but that's generally not the most common teams that you see. They generally have a well-rounded element to them. So that is my breakdown of Mono Earth and Earth rankings. If you like this type of content, please let me know in the comments. Give me a like, give me a subscribe, and also let me know what element you want me to do next. The one with the most upvotes, I will do next. But I am not going to do any more mono elements unless I see some suggestions in the comments. So get to it, my friends. See you next time.